Hello, my name is Leon Ma. In the last few weeks, I have released photos and information about knives that were stolen from me. They were stolen by Mr. Rotten Patrick and his girlfriend, Ms. Priscilla Chavez. Mr. Rotten Patrick did videography for me last year. We first started communicating around June of 2020. He sent me a text message asking if I had any Lannies left. I had taken it off my website because I only had one left in inventory. We talked about the knife, and after a lengthy conversation, his girlfriend PayPal'd me the money. I shipped it off the next day, and when Mr. Patrick received it, he called me to tell me how blown away he was by the quality of my knives. The very next day, I received a video link showing me the video he did of the Lanny. I was impressed. I called Mr. Patrick and asked if he would like to continue to do videos for me and what he would charge. He said at the time he charged $175 per video. But because he's trying to fill up his channel, he would do it for nothing if I sent him the knives. And that was the agreement at the time. I asked Mr. Patrick for his ID, a driver's license, like I usually do for any of my customers. And he said he didn't have it. He lost his ID, and he has not had time to go to the DMV for one. At that point, his girlfriend sent me her ID. Now, I was reluctant at first, but I shipped Mr. Patrick a few knives to do videos of. When he received them, he did videos, sometimes 2 to 3 videos a week, and he would post a short of the video on my channel. Things were going well. Mr. Patrick would send me emails like this. Hello, Mr. Ma. It's your brother Rocky, and this is what I was trying to say the other day, but really couldn't convey it all in one short moment on the phone. I must say by saying I'm forever grateful, and I do owe you a great deal, Leon. Why, you might ask? Honestly, for me, you make me a better person when working with you, or whatever you call it. There is a true passion I have for film, but previously with creating music videos, cover ads for artists cover. I even designed the current logo for the Dallas Gentlemen's Club. But nothing I could truly be proud of, show my parents, my in-laws, and be 1000% proud of it until I met Leon. In addition, nothing to do with knives or film, you have shared life lessons and tried to direct me down the correct path in life. I only want people like you around me, and if I'm not moved by a person like that, then something is wrong with me. Then, to add all of this, you teach me business, ethics, and just how to position yourself as a brand for the long term, which for me is my family, and you make sure I never lose sight of them, no matter what I do. You have entrusted me to film the LMD catalog and create the LMD legacy portfolio, then design timeline, as well as represent LMD here on the ground level in Dallas. Still, you have done more by accepting me asking you to be Nico's godfather. And most recently, told me you're willing to help and teach me some things in design, basically giving me even more opportunities and options to provide an even better life for my family. The greatest gift I could possibly ask of you or anyone in the world. And these are the reasons I owe you, Leon. And all the reason I will forever make you say, I don't know where this kid came from, but I'm sure he's here. I'm sure glad he's here. That was one of the emails that Mr. Patrick sent me. And things were going well for a time. A month or two have gone by, and Mr. Patrick then suggested he could also show off my knives to local gun stores in the area. At the time, I had no one that would show off my knives to anyone, and I didn't have any kind of payment program to pay the person to do that. I would have dealers, but they were mostly online. I told Mr. Patrick I did not want him to do that because I actually asked him to do more videos for me and wanted him to only concentrate on doing videos, and expressed to him there was no way for me to pay him and the stores. At which point Mr. Patrick said, I'm not going to stand in your way. I believe in this brand and I want to make it bigger. He did go out and approach several stores, and 3 of them did eventually place orders, anywhere from 4 to 6 pieces. And because he had a local clientele, there were customers who started seeing his videos on my channel and his, and asked if they could see the knives personally. I then told Mr. Patrick, since you're not getting a cut from the knives on the stores, I will send you knives so you can sell directly to these customers and be able to make the same money as a dealer. This was my way of actually paying him back. In recent days, you have seen videos of Mr. Patrick sharing this information of how I compensate dealers. I want to tell you right now that Liang Ma Design would not be where it is at without dealers supporting my brand. I support my dealers and view them as my business partners. And I will continue to support them and refer my customers to them, especially when these customers are overseas and I have a dealer there. For them to purchase a knife directly from me here in the US and ship it to them, they would have to pay an expensive shipping cost, and on top of that, a luxury tax, which would price my knives out of reach for most people. At that point, Mr. Patrick was happy with the situation. He did have a few local customers, and things were going pretty well for him. To the point where in November, I told Mr. Patrick that I wanted to meet him. He said to me that his girlfriend's birthday was right around the corner, and she wanted to go to Tampa because that's where she grew up. So I booked the Airbnb for us to stay at so I could meet Mr. Patrick. And we spent 6 days in Tampa, and I talked to him more and more about the business. And at that point, I saw that there was a potential that this person could be a part of my company. Now, after the trip in Tampa, Mr. Patrick discussed about me investing in a new camera for him to do videos in 6K, and said that that was a good format for commercials and, doing series and everything. And even though I probably shouldn't have, I listened and I made the investment in getting the new camera system for Mr. Patrick, in which he sent me an email that says, "Hello Leon, is Rocky emailing and wanting to share something with you that I've been going over and over in my head. If you remember our conversations or look back in our emails, you remember me asking for the initial investment and what plans were made in trying to reach a set goal. In my mind, at least, you told me no worries. Whenever I need, you can pay it for the company," which I said, no, it's an investment meaning a return is happening with some type of gain involved. I had and still have no problem with any of this. And the reasoning behind that is the fact that I always said, Leon, it will pay for itself through me selling knives, knowing the new line is coming and everyone is waiting on it. So the business and money would have to come if I just keep my head down and stay working and do my job correctly. To this day, Mr. Patrick has not fully returned the investment, nor has there been a gain on my end. In January of 2021, I went to visit Mr. Patrick in Fort Worth, Texas. I went to see how things were going, and my first question was, how's the filming on the new lineup? To which Mr. Patrick responded that I called him a few days earlier, and in our conversations, I told him not to do any filming on the new lineup. And I was like, why would I say that? I allowed you and sent those knives to you to do filming, and you were supposed to send them back to me so I can then pass it on to other reviewers to do their reviews on. Mr. Patrick then just said that was what he was told, and he needed more time to do the filming. He also insisted at the time that I would receive my investment back before I leave Texas. Well, I was there for 6 days, and every day he kept repeating that he was going to get me my investment, get me my investment. Well, the day before I left, he said that he wasn't able to return my investment. At which point I asked him, so how much would you return back to me? Which made him quite angry. I also told him not to make promises that he cannot keep. Because in business, if you keep doing that, no one will want to work with you, which made him even more angry. I returned to Florida the next day, and in the following weeks, I called Mr. Patrick, and he asked me for several knives because his customers wanted them. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll send them out. But I didn't. The reason I didn't was because I felt that something was going on, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't want to ship more product to someone who I wasn't so sure about anymore. Also, at this point, he still has not presented an ID to me, and any plans that we have talked about will require him to send me his ID or a business EIN so that I can draw up a contract, a formal contract with him. And he refused to send me his ID. We talked a few more times before March, and before I left for the ICCE show, he told me that he asked me to hire him for my company. And again, I expressed to him, how could I do that? Even if you applied for a job at your local supermarket or McDonald's, you're required to prove who you are. And I have not been able to do that. Then he asked me how much I pay myself. And I told him, I actually pay myself under $30,000 a year. Surprise, surprise, everyone. For those of you who think I'm, swimming in money. And at that point in time, Mr. Patrick said, that's how much I want to be paid. In which my response would be, well, how much revenue have you generated for the company? He did not have a response, but I could tell that he was not happy with my answer. When I arrived in Texas again for the ICCE show, I spent 6 hours talking with Mr. Patrick in front of his building, on the stairs, in the parking lot. We talked for 6 hours, where basically he was expressing how dissatisfied he was with his situation. Somehow I'm not paying him enough for all of his efforts, all his contribution. Not never once mentioning that I made an investment in a new camera system for him. And I've been paying him the money for his sales on the knives. I then asked him to give me back all the knives since he was not happy with the situation. He brought down the knives and I put it in my car, and I asked him, what about the 2021 lineup? He's like, well, I need a few more days to do filming. And I was like, really? You used to drop 2 videos in a week and a short for me. What happened? He's like, well, things are going on and I haven't been able to do it. And at that point in time, he brought up a payment of $7,500 that he would like from me to own all the videos and for the work. And I was like, well, I kind of have to ask my accountant if there are enough funds, really, and if this can actually happen. So I took the knives and I took them back to my hotel room and started counting. On the morning of March 25th, I sent Mr. Patrick this message. Good morning, Rocky. Can you check your home? There are about 16 pieces missing from the inventory. And here's the list of knives that were missing that I sent Mr. Patrick, that he has not sent payment back for, nor were there any pieces there in the inventory that I took the night before when I collected all my things back from him. Mr. Patrick's explanation for the missing inventory was that somehow or another I sold it and collected the money and just did not take it off the inventory list. Now, this was a big question mark, obviously, missing inventory. But I knew that I needed to find out what was going on, and I was not getting a straight answer from him. The next couple of days, the show went on, and it was a good time. The show was good. And on Sunday, I met up with Mr. Patrick, with my friend who came to help me at the show. And we talked some more, and he said on Monday he will return the inventory to me. On Monday, right before I left Fort Worth, this was March 31st, we went to meet up with Mr. Patrick at his apartment again. And there, he gave me a box of knives. And I went and took all of them out. And I saw that there were several pieces missing. All the pieces with the Mokuta and steel, several others that were just one-offs from the samples that I sent Mr. Patrick to do filming on. And he responded, well, you still owe me $7,500. To which I replied, like, what's the agreement? You know? And he's like, you're not getting it back until I get my money. I've been filming for 4 days. Mr. Patrick also had his handgun on his desk just in case my friend and I would try anything, which was quite ridiculous. I left Fort Worth and came back to Florida, and I informed several of my friends what has gone on, and they told me that they would put it through the channels because Mr. Patrick has been contacting several manufacturers to get product for filming. And they know that because of my relationship with him, they wanted to see if this was working out or not. And they were thankful that I warned them. When I got back to Florida, I was also shocked by a message that I received from a collector in Fort Worth. And he says, I informed him that he could post up videos about the Cuff 4 that he got from me in January. And he said, cool, awesome, look at what I got. And I asked him then, where did you get that 18? That was one of the samples that Mr. Patrick had to do filming on. And it was at that point he informed me that this and another 18 was sold to another collector the day before when I met up with Mr. Patrick when he was supposed to return all the knives. It was already sold to these collectors. I debated back and forth about whether to say anything publicly about this issue. I still thought of Mr. Patrick as someone who was a friend. But when I received that message on Messenger, I knew this was not going to end up well for me if I don't say anything. So I made a post on Instagram and Facebook with all the knives that were not returned. And I listed his name and all of his Instagram and Facebook and YouTube names. And to which Mr. Patrick then followed up with a video defending himself. That I have not paid him for such videos. Or that these were his knives to do with whatever he wanted. I also received a text message from one of the stores that Mr. Patrick set me up in, saying that he offered one of the samples knives for a trade in December. So this wasn't about payment whatsoever to him. So if this was about me not paying him, how was he going to ever return the knives back to me when they're already sold? As early as December of last year. Mr. Patrick never planned to return those knives to me. He just wanted to scam more money from me. This was another one of his scams that he ran time and time again. After I made the initial post, he made a follow-up video. And during that time, a private investigator sent me some very colorful information about Mr. Patrick's past. I have since made a second post. And some of you who have supported him now see all that has been going on. Some of you have said things like, hey, there's always two sides to every argument. I hope you now see this in a better light. Now, at first when I made that post, of course I didn't know all the effects on all the ripples in the water that would happen. I made that initial post because we are a tight-knit community. A community where we share information like this on people who are not so honorable. And after I shared it, some of my friends called me and said, thank you, because I was about to ship him a knife for review and I probably wouldn't have gotten it back. That was the real reason why I made that post initially, because I didn't want anyone else to get scammed. In the following months, I will be pursuing a civil lawsuit against Mr. Patrick and Ms. Priscilla Chavez. I don't know the outcome of this, but it is the avenue that I have to follow to make sure that he no longer will have ability to scam other people. I'm sure he will, but make it harder for him. I also want to thank all of you who have written positive messages on my Instagram, Facebook posts, words of encouragement, who DM me, private message me, send me text messages and emails, sharing information, and also words of encouragement and telling me to continue to fight. It has given me renewed vigor to continue to provide great designs, terrific products that are of value, and great customer service to all my customers. Thank you so much for your support. Signing off now.